Welcome once again to IT Nation's here in Orlando, Florida at the Gaylord College Resort. We're joined by the ConnectWise evangelist and premier host of the PitchIT event.
I am the host. Why, yes, I am the host and the premier at that. Thank you.
And we're going to do this like a dozen times, so I'm trying to mix it up.
Thank you for the gracious intro. I really appreciate that. My good friend and illustrious Ray Orsini. See that? Stoic as shit. Anyway, yeah. So I brought on my good friend. Actually, became a very good friend. Yeah. A very good friend. Before I even say your name, I'm going to say this. He won PitchIT 2 years ago. He was a head coach last year for PitchIT, so he's been a huge advocate and champion for it. Also an MSP currently. He's been around for quite some time as an MSP and a vendor, so he's juggling both. Kind of impressive, right? And he's actually becoming like a farmer. So
that's the most impressive.
Yes. So his name is Gene Reich, but he's changed it to Yoder soon. So Gene Reich from Traceless.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
AKA Yoder.
So when is PitchIT going to have a farming thesaurus?
Well, we're looking into that now because we find value in sustenance.
I'll make up an eye-tech thing. I actually did see a tractor that was shooting lasers at reeds.
That's kind of awesome, right? Or if you could put no.
Even living in suburbs.
What would be dope is if it had swords, laser swords. If it was literally,
if the blades were swords spinning around,
and they would lit up and literally like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like Darth Maul. Like Darth Maul had both sides. Literally, if you saw that thing spinning and cutting down, I would totally be a farmer.
It's just sapping under PitchIT that did that.
They would probably. We would probably just let them have the event.
They definitely need to.
I'd be like, you win. Thank you.
Tractors as a service. Yeah. We'll talk about the TAS program next year.
That's coming up.
All right. So it was 2 years ago. You were a coach last year. This year, you're advocating for PitchIT. So having come up other experiences, right? You having come off with the trophy, having come off with coaching these guys and girls. What are you telling them this year? What is different 2023 than 22 or any like that?
Yeah, I think if you look it back, even a few before, when Jameson and Time West.
Also Time West.
Yeah.
West Spencer, yeah.
Time West. Can we fix that?
Yeah. So you guys have before with Jameson and Times F. I think when they won, ConnectWise was here's $70,000. What do we send there? And then when we won, it was what's your plan? And let's make sure you're doing what you're doing, and we'll distribute the funds to make sure you're just not using it properly. But then when Sean took over the program, it's had a lot more structure in the way of participation from an accelerator kind of perspective, where it's not just a pitch content,
right?
It's the value to all these other businesses prior. And I think that's really good in the way that people, this is very common, right? MSP owner, I got a great idea, I'll start another business.
Absolutely.
Right? And I feel really grateful that Traceless is working out, but it's not easy and it's not for everybody. And so I think it's a different kind of business, right? And so I think that it also helps people determine, well, maybe my software company is not what I think it was going to be.
Right.
Or maybe I need to back off and do all this work before taking investment money or going forward. So I think it's really useful to just help people to really think differently.
There's so many things beyond just, I have an idea, solve the problem.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be honest, that's what MSPs do, right?
Yes.
I do that as MSP, you do that with MSP. So we all do. We just solve the problem. And sometimes we realize, because we like to make things scalable and feasible, there's a product here, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens here. Your mindset today versus 2 years ago, when it comes to what it takes to be successful with MSPs, right? Because 2 years ago it was, I'm an MSP, I think I know what it takes to be successful. You won't pitch it.
Yeah.
Now, 2 years later, is it the same impression or has your views changed?
I think one of the things, and, Sean writes me about this a lot, is having outbound sales process was very different. I think there's a lot of MSP owners, and I was one of them, who qualified themselves as very good salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have a referral, it's a qualified lead from a warm source. I trust you with the business. I hope you close it. I'm just the joke is don't show up naked and you'll be able to get this whole student, right?
Right.
that's very different than selling SaaS to cold prospects, right? And so there's some very few MSPs who actually have mature developed sales process.
Right.
And a lot of times the owners don't actually participate in that.
Yes.
So that's been a good, like, I'm just looking at it as like, I'm learning in my entrepreneurial world what then to build a sales process and sales culture.
Well, Ray and I went through that with his company.
Yeah.
He came from one side, went to the other on his own. And then there's the locale issue first off. If you're used to selling locally, if you're ingrained in the community, you have that introduction, you have the things that go on, right? Your kid goes to school with this other kid that their parents happen to do something you can help them with, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's the happenstance of life, right? And he and I went through when we started working together was like, how do we get there?
Yeah.
How do we do these things? And it had to be you have to do it with intent.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a time after that you can just sit back and wait until somebody says, hey, this guy, Gene, got a good product. You know, like, I heard about him. He's in New York somewhere on a farm. Yeah. There's nobody saying that, like, actually ever. So, no, but, okay, so even for you, though, being involved in PitchIT, winning, and then even your business, have you seen any changes in the way you're doing business, too? Because when I met you a year and a half ago, you had one particular idea of how you were going to approach the market.
Yep.
And now, what has been the change?
So this year we're doing less events and doing bigger events.
Yep.
With a smaller budget, right? And I think that for us, we're trying to make more meaningful results of the events that we're doing.
Sure.
We're also just trying to figure out how to gain market attention without going to events. Like, so we've done some webinars.
Yep.
It's been great. I just did one with our Cycle Insights and Alex, and we're doing one inside. Yeah, in August. So I think that can a really good effort that's worth doing for community away. And I guess it's also easy because I'm talking about less and that's emotional life. So it feels like intimidating a little bit. As you know, I'm like a extrovert, introvert.
How are you? I hadn't noticed.
Extrovert, extrovert.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So
I like keep everything bottled up inside.
We did actually give you a chance to talk about what Traceless is.
Yeah.
So you got the audience.
The audience,
What is
yeah.
Traceless?
Was there like a million people on the live stream?
Yes, they're watching
At
around.
least a million.
Only dads.love. Only dads.love. Go.
Yeah. So the way we're doing Traceless is we're thinking about threats as they pertain to chat and ticketing. And what's been interesting about transition of COVID, remote first, and just the adoption of ticketing and chat is that businesses are communicating differently to their customers, not just MSPs. If you look at like the success of Zendesk, where is it? Ticketing. And then if you look at the success and the rise of adoption of chat like Teams and Slack,
Yep.
people are communicating in these spaces, but there's not really a lot of critical focus on how those spaces are protected because there's certainly a big threat vector.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're early on the scene. I can't believe that there's not more pressure on these systems that MSPs are seeing because they're wide open. And I think that there will be a mature market like email having for chat and ticketing.
So this is an interesting topic because I've talked to a few industry analysts, and my personal opinion is always, again, MSP is about 10 years behind enterprise, right? So contact validation, secure messaging, enterprises have this for a while, right? And I look at like the RPA companies, RPA and enterprise have been there for 10, 15 years easily, right? In the MSP world, last 2-3 years, this stuff that Traceless is doing is interesting because there are some players they're getting into it in the enterprise space, but this is like one of the few areas where I see it's greenfield in enterprise and greenfield in MSP. And when you say it out loud, it absolutely makes sense. It should be there.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's one of those, oh yeah, moments.
Yeah.
So it's always cool to see something in the MSP space holding pace with the enterprise space.
It is. Well, okay, so let's talk just real quick on that. Usually you see an enterprise space first off because the price when it first introduces the market is too high, right? We know that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this on purpose because you're not. your product is not ridiculously priced. And so
MSP pricing.
That's exactly it. As a matter of fact, I've heard MSP say to him, you should charge more. So
No, it's 100% like, that was the thing, right? I had this vulnerability in my MSP, and I'm like, I'm going to help protect MSPs, grab a cape, make it affordable. So when we first started, it was like all you can eat, either $50 a month or $100 a month, right? And I'm like, okay, that's not sustainable. But that was the idea, is that like, I understand tool creep and how expensive it is, and security is often not adopted because of cost or because of process, because it takes time. And so we've tried our hardest to make it approachable from an implementation and use standpoint, but also like affordable for people. Just say it's like coffee money, and sometimes that's too far. I mean,
Dunkin' or Starbucks?
Dunkin'.
But Dunkin'. Dunkin's better than Starbucks.
So I didn't say either. I just said, I have my own espresso machine.
Oh, foaming milk and
I am.
That's not coffee.
No, really?
Coffee is bean water, hot, black, done.
Really? That's weird, because I remember having Cuban coffee at your office that tasted like complete sugar.
That is dessert. That's not.
I don't know.
And so here.
Exactly. Just because you got that hat on, you think you drink dark coffee. I'm a man's man with this hat on.
Yeah, it's like the Marlboro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're a fucking princess.
Reach out to you want to reach out to Traceless. Contact information for Gene will be in the show notes below. Reach out, and thank you for all your help with the pitch competition. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's partially the reason I'm so passionate about it is that like we need to evangelize it. We were talking about this earlier about it's the space that needs more light on new things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of the challenges is that there's like a few large companies that own a lot of the industry. And whatever, that happens, right? It happens in a lot of industries. It's not just MSP, but it's harder for smaller, newer companies to have their voice, right? But that's like what's moving the industry forward is. So yeah, thanks for supporting you as well.
Awesome. Thanks for being part of it.
Got it.
Yeah, thanks, pal.
You got it, buddy.
You're amazing.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.